Yeah. Okay, welcome back. Some time everyone has been waiting for. It is time for the next issue of Panda's Odyssey. For me to tell you all about my adventures traveling around the world. It has been months since I last updated my blog. This will be the first episode of telling you about those adventures. I've already made one of these audio casts, just recapping you with what Panda's Odyssey is about, and talking about my last year of being back home and in the real world of sorts, back in the working world at least. So, where did we leave off? It was in New Zealand. I was off to meet up with my friend Tom in Wellington, the last stop in New Zealand. Looking back, it's almost been 2 years. That is mid-December of 2017. I'm very far behind. But yeah, a little backstory. So Tom and I go back, 20 years or so. I've met him when I was a teenager. We met through our mutual friend James. I met James when I was boxing. So that was about when I was 13, 14. And basically Tom and I have been friends ever since. Just coincidentally, we both decided there is more to just paying bills, working to pay bills. As I was planning the Odyssey, Tom had already planned his own backpacking adventures and had taken off just as I was on my final year of getting ready to actually explore the world. Tom had come and visited me, and he had just been ending. He had just spent a year backpacking around the world. Had a lot of insight to pass on to me from his experiences backpacking mostly through Southeast Asia. So it was a lot of cool insight I got from him while he visited me, and we talked about the travel life. And we still talk once in a while online about the travel life and the urge to travel again. I was being actually quite evil shortly after this time. I remember talking to him, trying to get him to come and join me in Japan for some skiing, which never came around. It never happened. It was quite evil of me. He had just started a new job, and here I am sending him all sorts of links and pictures about skiing in February in Japan, and he did not like me then. Yeah, I took the bus down to Wellington from Taupo. It's about 4 or 5 hours. It's a straight line down, just a road. You sit there all morning staring at fields of sheep, and then eventually you show up at the city of Wellington. And so I've been in contact with Tom all this time, texting back and forth. And so I told him when I would be arriving, and I was keeping in contact with him for him to meet me at the bus stop. I text him, I let him know I have arrived, and I'm expecting to see him at the bus stop. I don't know where it drops me off. It's in front of some kind of government building. So here I am on the side of the road with my backpack, looking around for him, and I get a text. I'll be right there. So I'm standing around and I'm waiting, and maybe not long, maybe 5-10 minutes, not long. And Tom shows up with a big smile on his face, and he's like, "Welcome to Wellington," and he has a bag a paper bag from Burger King and hands me it over to me, and sure enough, it's got a Whopper in it waiting for me. So if you don't know the whole story about this, is one of the things I wanted to do while traveling, obviously, is eat local food, but as a side project to see if I could, how well I can manage Instagram and social media, I came up with my own tag of 100 Whoppers, 100 cities. So the idea was every time I got to a new city, I'd eat a Whopper, I'd take a picture of it, and I'd try and get the attention of Burger King to maybe sponsor me. I thought it would be hilarious to have a Burger King patch on my gi and be able to say that, this Panda is sponsored by Burger King as I travel around the world. It didn't work out, but it was still some fun times of taking some pictures, eating burgers. So anyways, back to the story. Tom shows up with Whoppers for me, knowing that I love Whoppers, I love Burger King. We head down. We're pretty much right downtown at the Harbourfront anyways. So only a few more minutes of walking down the streets. I don't know exactly where we went from where I was, but I followed Tom and we ended up on the harbor in front of the Tapapa Museum, just sitting down on the pier, eating the burgers and enjoying the view, and kind of catching up on how life has been traveling and how life has been for him, adjusting back to just being in the working world. So after the burgers, we set off on our way to Tom's place, which is uphill. I was found out Wellington is basically all just a hill. At the top of this hill is a lookout where you can see all of Wellington and a lot of the southern part of North Island, and maybe even the tip of South Island. But it's a really nice lookout area, and but it's a really steep hill. So walking up to Tom's place is quite a trek if you're not used to it. And walking up from his place to the lookout is also a bit of a trek if you're not used to it. So there is a day or two where I had time to myself to just walk around. Making my way back to Tom's place was a bit of an effort. My knee was still really hurting. Remember, I had just hurt my knee in Taupo. So trying to walk back up the steep hill really wasn't my thing. It kind of sucked, but you got to go with your adventures, right? You can't pick the days, you can't pick the best times. You got to use whatever opportunity you have. So if I have to hobble around to see sights, then that's what I had to do. While I was in Wellington, I went to the Papa Museum. It's a really cool museum. From the outside, it looks kind of cool. Very cool, modern kind of spaceship-looking museum. And but inside, it's got a really cool exhibit. It's still going on now. It's going to be going on for a while, I believe. Weta, the company that did all the effects for the Lord of the Rings, they did this exhibit on Gallipoli. The Gallipoli exhibition covers the Battle of Gallipoli, New Zealand's participation in the First World War, from taking the journals of 8 different people that were involved, different positions, from nurses to soldiers to officers, and tells their stories from the Battle of Gallipoli, and also covers all of New Zealand's efforts during the First World War. Weta took these journal entries and these pictures and other information of these people and built these tableau style pieces of these people and the scenes described in the journals. These scenes that they built, though, are so massive. They're about 20 feet or more, these giant people, but they're also so incredibly lifelike. Like, I was looking at these and you could see I got memorized staring at these statues. I'm staring at them. You can see the beads of sweat on their forehead. You can see the hairs on their knuckles. Every little detail. It looks so lifelike. There was a few times as I was staring at these pieces, I was expecting them to move, right? To actually talk. And they're all in action scenes, right? From the journal. So one journal describes the guy, his friend being shot and wounded, and him helping him. Here you are seeing it now in front of you, like you're actually there, but at the same time they're so massive in that scale. It's like literally being a fly on the wall, or watching the life of giants, I guess. Incredibly done. The exhibit also has some other cool things, some interactive maps. They show you how different beachheads were stormed. They have a cool three-dimensional models of the trench warfare. So it's like a cutout of the ground to show you the tunnels and the living conditions and whatnot. I have a bunch of pictures from this exhibit in my Flickr account. If you're watching this on a platform with videos, you're seeing the slideshow of these pictures I took. This exhibit is going on for a while, so definitely check it out. So anyways, yeah, Tom and I are catching up. We're hanging out with each other. He's showing me some sights. We'll walk up to the lookout to see Wellington, take some pictures. We drive over to the Weta Museum, which is really small. It's basically just like a gift shop. Like, it's really small. They got these the trolls out front. So I got some pictures with the giant trolls out front. But before all this, actually, my first night, we had a bit of a movie marathon. Tom's wife, Anna, back then was his fiancée, Anna. They've been married since then. I missed the wedding. But yeah, so Anna, who is from New Zealand, which is why Tom is there, of course. So they hosted a bit of a New Zealand movie marathon. I'd already known of Taika Waikiti's movies, but I've never really watched them before. So we watched, of course, What We Do in Shadows, and also Hunt for the Wilder People. It was a fun night of watching New Zealand culture. Of course, if you know of Wellington and know of his movies, you see, especially what we do in Shadows, it's shot right in Wellington. So while I was there visiting and walking around downtown, I did see some of those scenes, and of course made jokes about being on the lookout for weird individuals asking me if I wanted to follow them to their house for spaghetti or baschetti. One cool aspect was in the morning, Tom made me a good home-style Canadian breakfast, complete with authentic Canadian maple syrup that Tom had been rationing ever since he had been in New Zealand, slowly using it up until he can, or trying to save it rather, until he could make it back to Canada and replenish his supply. I believe he's done so recently, but at this time, he only had a little bit left, so he's a little reluctant to actually let me have some, but he is a good friend, and I was able to have some good old pancakes and maple syrup and crispy bacon, which was a great delight. You don't understand how much we love our bacon and maple syrup. At this point in the Odyssey, I had been backpacking for about 13 months, so I had a lot of experiences to share with Tom. And himself hadn't having traveled for about a year throughout Southeast Asia, he also had a lot of experiences to compare, and that was one aspect about our relationship that's really kind of cool, is that we have these similar experiences we can compare and bounce off ideas and relate to. In fact, while traveling, I would post things that he would also kind of he would reinforce or give insight on. He would say, "Well, yeah, I was thinking that same kind of thing while I was traveling at that point." For instance, everyone kind of gets through a phase of not wanting to return, or just wanting to give it up, or whatever. And also, given that he had done his traveling before me, just like when he came to visit me, it was like a year into the future, right? He was now dealing with what I am going through, or have been going through this past year, of now getting back into the work world of working to pay bills, and resisting the urge to travel, and going back into the life, the normal world, right? So while I was there visiting him, I was again kind of getting insights of what to expect, while also kind of getting some reinforcements on my thoughts for traveling, or a second opinion on thoughts. It's a good introspective, reflective moment. I don't know what big word I'm supposed to use for that, but it was nice to sit down and talk with a good friend who has similar experiences. During the day of Tom and Anna showing me around Wellington, we went driving around, and Anna brought me through this tunnel. Now, if you know Wellington, you know exactly what I'm talking about just by mentioning the tunnel. If you don't, have never been there, and you've never heard of the story, it's a good one. Now, I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I'm sure you can look it up. The Haunted Tunnel of Wellington. As I was told, a woman died in this tunnel, and they believe she haunts this tunnel. It's a driving tunnel. This is like on a main road. And it's quite a long tunnel. Now, I believe it's just the wind. Wellington is a windy city. It's on the coast, so they got a lot of wind that they're hearing, that the screaming in this tunnel. But, locals and their superstitions. So, as the story goes, a woman dies in this tunnel, and now she haunts it. And people driving through the tunnel honk their horn and yell for her to go away, so that she won't haunt them and have them crashed their car. I'm not too sure. But so Hannah goes driving through this tunnel, yelling away to tell this ghost to go away while frantically honking her horn. And as I said, it's a long tunnel. And Tom and I are laughing away. And I notice at first she is the only car doing this. So not only is this funny to listen to and watch, but now I'm thinking maybe Tom's marrying a crazy lady. And this might be my last time seeing my friend Tom again. But it's soon enough, other cars start honking back in return and flashing their high beams, and and you realize that yes, this is a thing. When you drive through this tunnel, you honk your horn and flash your lights and yell out the windows to scare this ghost away from haunting you. Another thing that I saw in Wellington as we were driving around is warning signs of the wildlife along the roads. Now in Canada, we have all kinds of animal crossing signs. Usually, it's warnings for the large animals we have here, like deer and moose and elk and whatnot. Big, large animals that if you hit with your car will probably kill you because they're huge. In New Zealand, in Wellington, it's not a big, large animal that you have to watch out for. No, they have penguin crossings. All along some of these roads, you see these signs warning you that penguins live there and to watch out for penguins crossing the road. So their number one fear of running over or hitting an animal is not a large animal with antlers that could gore you. It's a cute but stupid flightless bird. For training, I couldn't do much training because I hurt my knee in Topo. There was no rolling going on, but I didn't let that stop me from still coming out to gyms and doing some training, a little bit of drilling. It was still new, this injury, so I didn't really know how bad it was, other than it really hurt to walk around a lot. And I was I was just being stubborn. I didn't want to stop training. I didn't want to, because to me, I felt like if I was to visit places without training there, then why was I visiting? If I wasn't going to be visiting and training, then why am I doing this whole thing? I was kind of in this limbo of do I end the Odyssey at the end of the year and go home and fix my knee? But I decided to push on, and I kept hurting myself over and over again. You guys, I'm sure you've already read the past blog and all about it. So I visited these two gyms that are there, and I'm really glad I did because I met some cool people. The first gym is BJJ Wellington at the Dub. And I forget what the Dub is. It's a building that has a bunch of different martial arts in there. I shouldn't think the Dub is short for something else. The W, maybe? Anyways, martial arts at the Dub. And the black belt professor there is Professor Jeff Grant. And he is a John Will black belt. John Will is, I believe, the first black belt in Australia. He's underneath the Machados. I really wish I could have met him, like John Will, and done an interview with him, but he's just so busy, and I guess his gym is so busy that there is actually a waiting list to be able to get into, to be a student, to get into his classes, from what I heard when I was in Geelong. So anyways, Jeff Grant, Professor Grant, is a student of his. Big guy. I think I'm up to his shoulders. Lots of fun drilling. And I met one of his blue belts. At the time, he's a blue belt anyways. John. John is my training partner. He was very welcoming, and we have made good friends online. John has a bit of a dark, sick sense of humor, and I think it's hilarious. So we follow each other along on Facebook and laugh at the different memes that are posted. It was a lot of fun training at that club. It's just a big, huge open space upstairs. It's kind of hard to find. There's no big signs outside saying, jiu-jitsu club up inside. So I think at first I walked into a mechanics shop underneath and quickly realized this was not the gym I was looking for. It was the stairs, the small door with the stairs next to that place. That was the gym upstairs. I couldn't roll because of the knee, so during, I think it was a half hour or so of them rolling, I was talking with John and with Professor Grant there about my travels, and they had both traveled a bit around the areas. So talking about Southeast Asia, my future spots I was going to go to and spots I've just been to. There was a lot of information and stories shared between that time. It was a good time. I wish I could have been more a part of class. Gone back a few times, had some rounds rolling with people, but you have to just kind of go with what you got. The other club I went to was the Combat Room BJJ. That's with Professor Vanderson. I had a few friends from traveling who had recommended him to go to drop by his place. I can't remember who exactly gave me some high praise to go and check him out, but I did. His place isn't right downtown like the Dub is, Wellington BJJ, but it was easy enough to find. It's just off the road, has the sign out front and whatnot. Not that I really needed to look for it. I guess I stand out with my jiu-jitsu t-shirt and my little bag on my back. It has, jiu-jitsu patches on it. I was walking down the street and someone saw me, I guess, looking at my phone or something. I'm not too sure. I didn't think I was looking like I was in need of directions, but he looked at me and just called out to me, "Hey, are you looking for the jiu-jitsu place?" And sure enough, yes, I was. So he just directed me down. He actually walked with me because I guess he lived above it in a loft or so. And so it was kind of funny. I got escorted to the gym. It's a bit smaller than the other place. Still a really nice place. I think it was all white. If I remember correctly, it was just everything. The walls, the mats, everything. It was all white, which is it's kind of funny. So you're lost in a cloud. But yeah, Professor Vanderson, a really nice guy. It's hard to explain exactly what we worked on, but it was like being able to move your body weight when they have you in X or in butterfly or whatever, being able to control where your weight is going so you can't get swept and be able to kind of just float on top of them. I'm sure so some people that may sound easier than it was for me, and for others maybe you're lost in what I'm trying to say, because you weren't using your hands to post off the ground. You weren't using your hands to control their limbs or their hips or anything. You were merely just like all limbs out, kind of just moving your weight through your own body, awareness on how to float and stay balanced and not swept. Really cool concept. The guy I was training with, professor was there. It was a small class. It was only a few of us. So professor was there and kind of coaching me through it at times. And I was lost, but the guy I was training with was just a pro. Like, didn't matter what I tried to do. Even if I had two good legs, I wouldn't have been able to sweep him at all. He literally just, like, he got into my guard and just floated on top of me until he decided to pass to a side. It was crazy. I don't know how to explain it. After class, then Professor Vanderson and I went and sat in the corner and chatted, since I wasn't able to roll. And I was looking to talk to him more about his training and his history within New Zealand. But it turned into me being interviewed, kind of thing. It was kind of cool. He was very interested in my travels and my reasoning for all my travels and visiting his club, picking apart, who I am, which to me was really flattering. I guess it was really, really cool. I don't know how to describe it. I guess I'm always depreciating myself as just being a blue belt nobody who, is kind of just this aimless wanderer. And he's a black belt, a pretty well-known black belt, since I've been told by several people to go and visit him, and he's more interested about what I'm doing than telling me what he has done. I guess really when it comes down to it, when you think about it, in jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of people who, to them, that's the life, right? Just traveling and training, meeting awesome people, being on awesome adventures, and just, great times. The other side is those who stick to one school and train really hard to be the best competitor, right? And those two aren't mutually exclusive. You can have people who are in kind of have a foot in both pools, right? Or however that saying goes. But yeah, so I've been to gyms where they have a visitor. Well, they have a lot of visitors, so whatever. Just get the training, right? And then I have other schools like this where I walk into that gym and the professor is profoundly thankful for you showing up and really interested in you and why you're there. Now, I had this experience at both schools, not to single out just Professor Vanderson, and not mention that Professor Grant also really was happy to have me there and asked me all kinds of questions about traveling. But yeah, it's a cool memory that I'm sharing with you all. Kind of being on the spot makes you kind of reflect and realize where you've been and what you're doing and why you're doing it. So after training, I only got out one night to each club, and after having some sightseeing with Tom, reminiscing about old times and talking about our shared experiences traveling, or I guess sharing each of our experiences traveling, it was time to go. I was only there for a short while. And then it was my next stop. It was actually my last stop coming up before the holidays. And that was flying over to Singapore. I was going to meet up with an old friend from Toronto. She had been living there for some time now. I was also going to be meeting up with another globetrotter who I had met near the start of my travels. If you look all the way back to my month in the UK, I met up with June in Blackpool. He was traveling around the UK and in Europe. His path was opposite of mine, I guess. There have been a few places that I went to after meeting him that he had already been to. So we never met up again in Europe. And this is almost a year later. We're meeting up again now in his hometown, I guess. The next time I get back to talking about my travels on Panda's Odyssey, it will be about being in Singapore, meeting up with some old friends, and exploring an amazing city. Until then, follow me on social media at Panda's Odyssey. You can go to my Flickr account and see all my photos, flickr.com/Panda's Odyssey. Or you can check out my YouTube channel if you're not already watching this on YouTube at youtube.com/Panda's Odyssey. Pretty much just Google Panda's Odyssey, go to pandasodyssey.com. All the links are there. Until next time, see you on the mats.